Ever hit those low points in life where you just feel stuck, frustrated, wishing you had some magic solution to make everything better?
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Well, today we're diving into correcting bad habits to change destiny. And guess what? It actually says we can use those tough times as opportunities to grow.
It's not about avoiding the challenges completely, but more like figuring out how to use them to your advantage. With the right perspective, those low points can actually become a launch pad.
So you're saying no more wishing for shortcuts?
Well, about that, the first pitfall this text dives into is that tempting get-rich-quick thinking. You know, when you put all your hopes on one single lucky break?
Oh yeah, if I just win the lottery, everything will be fine.
Exactly. And to really illustrate this, they tell the story of John, who turns to gambling after he loses his job, hoping for that quick fix. And here's the kicker. He actually wins at first.
Which honestly probably makes it even harder to stop, right?
Absolutely. It's like that early win makes you think it's going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
But we probably would be talking about John if his story ended there.
So what happened?
Well, John's story ends up being a cautionary tale. It reminds us that chasing short-term wins doesn't usually lead to lasting success. Instead of relying on chance, the text emphasizes shifting your focus towards consistency and long-term thinking.
So basically ditch the lottery mentality and focus on what you can actually control. What's really interesting to me, though, is how this idea goes way beyond just gambling.
Oh, absolutely. Think about areas in your own life where you might be hoping for a quick fix instead of putting in the real work.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, though, especially when you're feeling impatient.
And speaking of impatience, that leads us perfectly to the next pitfall the text tackles. This one's all about emotional intelligence, or rather, the lack of it. The text tells the story of Lisa, this young entrepreneur who is so eager to see her new store succeed.
Okay, I'm already intrigued.
She decides to launch this huge marketing campaign. But here's the thing. She didn't really do her research first.
Which I think I see where this is going.
Yeah. It's a classic example of enthusiasm completely overshadowing strategy. And unfortunately for Lisa, it backfires. Big time.
So what went wrong?
She ends up with overstocked shelves, way fewer customers than she hoped for, and this financial hit that sets her back even further than she was before.
It's like she hit the gas pedal before even checking if the car was facing the right direction.
Exactly. The text highlights how important it is to hit that pause button for a minute, especially when you're feeling the pressure to get results instantly. Step back and think before making a big decision.
Instead of just jumping in head first, the text says to take a minute and ask yourself, what's the best move right now? Not just the fastest one.
Right. It's all about making decisions strategically instead of just reacting to how you're feeling at that exact moment.
Which, let's be real, can be a lot harder than it sounds, especially when you're feeling the pressure.
Oh, for sure. That's why the text emphasizes how important it is to break down your goals into smaller steps. Think of it like climbing a mountain. If you only focus on getting to the peak, it can feel impossible.
Right, like so overwhelming.
But if you break it down into smaller milestones like those base camps along the way, it feels so much more doable.
Okay, I like that analogy a lot. It's not about being the first one to the finish line. It's more about pacing yourself, making steady progress, and celebrating those little wins along the way.
Exactly. And speaking of building blocks and steady progress, that brings us to the third pitfall this text talks about, that lack of structure. It can really trip up even the smartest people out there.
This one feels especially relevant today. With the world moving so fast and everything, it's like we're always getting hit with new information and opportunities. It's hard to stay focused and actually make progress towards your goals.
You're telling me the text uses the story of Tom, this aspiring writer, to show Tom's got huge dreams, but he has a tough time with organization. He's always jumping from one idea to the next without a real plan.
Oh my gosh, that's me. I feel that. It's like having a million tabs open in your brain. It's exciting, don't get me wrong, but it's also a surefire way to get overwhelmed and lose track of everything.
Totally. And that's exactly why the text talks about self-reflection and planning. It encourages us to ask ourselves some tough questions like, what are my non-negotiables and what can I realistically get done each day?
So it's not about becoming the super strict taskmaster, right? It's more about creating a game plan for yourself, a structure that actually helps you reach your goals without crushing your creativity or flexibility.
Exactly. Like, think about building a house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't start building walls before you even had a solid foundation, would you?
Hopefully not.
The same goes for reaching your goals. You need a solid plan, even if it changes a little as you go.
Which kind of brings us to that big question. What happens when you hit roadblocks, even when you think you have the perfect plan?
Well, this is where the text's last point is so important. persistence with a purpose.
Yeah, okay, now that's interesting. So it's not enough to just keep pushing forward no matter what.
Right. This text argues that just being persistent without thinking can actually be just as bad as giving up too soon. You have to be persistent in the right direction. And that means staying flexible, being willing to adapt, and learning from your mistakes.
How do you know if you're being persistent in the right way, though? Or just kind of running in circles? That's where I think a lot of people struggle.
That's a great question. And the text gives this really interesting example to explain it. It compares two different salespeople. One is totally stuck in their ways, doing the same thing over and over, even though it's clearly not working. And the other salesperson is always trying new things, changing their approach based on what they learn and the feedback they get.
And I'm guessing that second salesperson is the one who ends up exceeding their goals. It reminds me of that quote, "The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." Sometimes you got to change things up.
Exactly. True persistence isn't about blindly repeating the same actions over and over. It's about embracing this mindset of always trying to get better. It's about being willing to change course, try new things, and learn from the times you fall short.
So it's less about never messing up.
Yeah.
And more about being able to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off.
Yeah.
And say, okay, what did I learn from that? And how can I improve next time?
Got it. And that's where feedback is so crucial. Are you open to hearing feedback from other people, mentors, even just from your own experiences? That's how you make sure your persistence is actually moving you forward.
It's like having that growth mindset you always hear about, right? It's not about being perfect right away. It's about really embracing the journey, learning from your mistakes, and always growing from them.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And you know what? This whole idea of persistence with a purpose really ties everything together from this deep dive. It's about letting go of that get-rich-quick fantasy, getting a handle on your impatience, and seeing structure as a tool that helps you grow, not some rigid set of rules.
So it's like we're building this amazing house, and all those pitfalls we talked about, the shortcuts, the impatience, the lack of structure, those are like the hazards you got to watch out for.
That's a great way to put it. And if you understand those hazards, and you've got the right tools, like self-awareness, a solid plan, and the willingness to adapt, you can navigate around those hazards and build something truly incredible.
You know, this deep dive has really been a good reminder that we're not just going along for the ride. We actually have the power to make choices, to navigate, and to ultimately shape our own destinies.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
No.
Correcting bad habits to change destiny. It's not just a catchy title. It's a call to action. You know, it reminds you that you already have what it takes to break free from those patterns that hold you back and create a life you actually love.
This has been fantastic. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot today. And as we wrap things up here, I'm curious, what's one small change you can make today to actually put these ideas into practice? Maybe it's taking a few minutes to plan your day, or reaching out to someone you admire for advice, or even just letting go of the need to be perfect and just taking that first step.
Whatever it is, just remember, even small changes when you do them consistently can lead to really incredible things. Don't underestimate what you could achieve just by taking action, no matter how small it might feel.
This deep dive has been awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. And until next time, remember, you have the power to change your destiny.